question. Michael Jackson owned, okay, the rights to the Beatles. He owned a significant portion of Elvis's catalog. Who's more popular than them two guys in the world of white music? And a black man owns the rights. Sony Records deliberately sabotaged Michael Jackson's last album, Invincible, to guarantee that he would be into debt to the corporation, so he would have to pay them back by giving up the catalog. Okay. And ultimately, that's why he was murdered. He should have never came back to the Staples Centers to prepare for those concerts that he had lined up. Those concerts would have gave him the liquid cash to pay off his debt to Sony and keep his catalog. So in order to make sure you get the catalog back, you got to make sure that Michael never goes on tour to get the liquid cash. Michael wasn't broke. He just didn't have the liquid cash. He had the assets. He didn't have the liquid money. And from what I heard, the catalog is no longer in the Jackson family's possession. So
well, the catalog was partially sold, I believe, to Sony after his death. Well, Michael Jackson, I guess at the time he was having some financial issues, but once he died and the state came in and cleaned up his finances, he became one of the richest dead celebrities on the planet.
Oh yeah. Well, he's the highest selling recording artist of all time. He sold more than 1 billion albums. No one else has ever done that. You know, but the music industry functions like any other white racist society. It's get down to lay down. So Michael was murdered. He was murdered without no question. And Prince, who do you know? Here's the interesting thing about the Prince murder. He was sick with the flu, but he was riding his bike in the park a day or two before he died. Who do you know with the flu takes a ride in cold Minnesota, okay, with the flu? Nonsense. Prince was murdered. They found him in the elevator, gasping for air, whatever the situation is. He was murdered too. And I think the problem that he made was he went back to the table to negotiate with Warner Brothers. They wanted to remix the Purple Rain 20 or 30 year anniversary album. He agreed to that. First of all, who calls you up and say, we want to give you your masters? That's the first question. Who calls anyone up and says, we want to give you your masters back? He's been fighting for his masters his whole career. All of a sudden, out the blue, you want to give him his masters? That was the Machiavellian give in order to take, to get back into Prince's life, find exactly what he was up to. Prince's death, Michael's death, was for the Beatles catalog and his share of Elvis's catalog. Prince was murdered for his unpublished material. They said Prince was almost like a Tupac, maybe even more than Tupac. They said Prince had enough unpublished material that you could release an album a year for the next 100 years. They didn't care about the Purple Rain. They want the unpublished material because that stuff is ultimately worth billions. You got to understand, Prince's fans are like no other fans. I know because I have an aunt who is a Prince fan. I mean, they are like no other fans. So you get your hands on a dead artist's unpublished material, is jackpot. He was murdered for what had not been released yet. Michael was murdered for what he owned.